Are you ready to save our kids? If children are the living messages that we send to a time that we will not see, Save Our Kids is an opportunity for you to be introduced to a few school and student helpers that will support each child's individual journey. If there is a space or a place to improve the lives of our children, we know a few families and business owners who have made it their business to answer the call for help and provide a solution to those quietly discussed challenges that impact our children and eventually us all. We could not just choose one kiddo to save, so we are asking for your help to reach more. Join Keeping Your Kids Safe as we identify some of the problems and share a few solutions that have been created just for you. Haha. Hello, hello.
Hello. I love that opening. Love
Thank
all the pictures, and it's so welcoming. I love it.
This is good. My whole entire intent on doing that is to just maybe have people see themselves, see their children
Yeah.
in there and know. I mean, I watched this one family on YouTube that because that sounded a little creepy. So this one chef,
Uh-huh.
personal chef, she actually does this thing for her children once a month where she gets them all dressed up and like they're going to a five-star restaurant and she makes them a five-star meal and she does it intentionally and she sets this up and rolls everything out, and I think that that's kind of what I'm excited to see. That's what I want to kind of see with these is to be able to share our experiences and our interests and our passions for other families to be able to see and feel that as well.
Yes. It's so funny. I'm smiling so big. When I was in Maryland teaching, I used to have a teammate, and she and I, every year for our school, they did an auction to raise money. And one of the things they did was ask teachers to put together activities for kids. And we took 8 kids to a 5-star restaurant, and it taught them the etiquette process of going out to dinner. And we used to have so much fun. The kids would get so fancy and dressed up, and they were so serious about it. It was just, oh, it was so much fun. So,
But it also encourages them to find their passion. Because
yes.
that's the thing about it is that you know how many people. Okay, so I was just watching this story about Keenan Waynes, right? He was in school in his last year for engineering before he left,
Oh,
right?
really?
So you'd be surprised at what happens by just saying, my niece is sort of a caregiver, right? She has a
Right.
tendency to want to always take care of others and do things like that. So therefore, that's possibly what might happen for her as well. So she might go into being a home care nurse or something along those lines. So having those type of pictures set up like that and sharing that type of those type of examples to people who watch, um, I think that that actually helps to encourage and motivate others to go and seek their dream and pay attention to what your children are saying because they actually know what they want to do in their lives. They cannot communicate that as of yet.
Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
that.
I love that.
So this person's name,
I
Chrisus.
think it's actually Chris Montessere, who I'm connected with. For some reason, there's some extra letters showing up in his name.
Okay, so
Hi,
Chris, I
Chris.
can just stop here. All right, Chris, thanks
I
for
think
joining.
so.
Because I
I
was
love
like,
it.
I don't know about this. I don't want to mess up anybody's name. Okay. So we always start with the same thing because we start for a reason. There's a reason why we're here. I don't care what anybody say. We love our teachers. So we do love our teachers. We do believe they need a little bit more help. There's some challenges a part of that, and I think that that's part of what we want to talk a little bit about and provide help. If you can do me a favor and please, I put it in 2 places, scan and like to
I love
subscribe to the channel, right? So you can get more videos updated, look, update.
it.
We're doing that thing. I feel like, I'm always having trouble to promote or to even encourage or talk about the reason why I started business and why child safety and education is so important to me. But, I feel like I've kind of gone off like too far left to one side. And it's not because it's not needed. It's just not my position to play. I can bring awareness to things that are there. I can let you know that there are additional options, and I can bring those additional options to you. That in all actuality, there's some things that I would love to be able to do with education, but right now that's not my space.
Right.
So I need to maintain in child safety, because I think that's where the major impact is going to be had when it comes to me, from me to the rest. And that's kind of where I'm going to. But I love being able to talk to you because oh, what the heck? I don't like the way that worked out. So it was bridging the gap. Woo, okay, I'm not gonna post that up back up, but
That's okay.
you're working with Christine
Yes.
to bridge the educational gap. And so you're a very good person to have a conversation about this subject today.
Well, and our focus with Christine and I is parent engagement and parent involvement, and how can we increase and improve. And then my personal focus with advocacy is exactly that, but just really looking at kids with disabilities and making sure that they've got the supports in place. So I appreciate you having me on to talk about this.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get with it, because by this point, a lot of people know who we are at
Yes.
this time. So there's no need to have those introductions. So now we can have a lot more time for conversation. I'm gonna also place up the fact that we do recommend and encourage questions, comments to kind of keep us moving, especially maintaining the conversation that you want to hear and engage with. So please feel free to go ahead and drop your comments and questions in the chat to wherever you are, so that we can go ahead and answer them and you can be part of the conversation. So let's dive in. So I've started this and I recognized, and I have all these notes. This is funny, these notes. So 4 million teachers, K through 12, right? But more than 55% want to quit. That's a problem. That tells us that we need to add more help, support to teachers, principals, and and the administration when it comes to education. When we take a look at it, I went and broke it down, because it's like 50, 50 million children go to school every year. It doesn't matter what school, charter, private, public, it's all there. They all go to school, and inside of there, that 18 million families feed into all of these schools, and that comes at a cost. But when we take a look at K through 12, that's only 32.6 million students, but we still got too many teachers who want to quit. So that's double. That's twofold. One, they want to quit. That's a problem we really need to work to resolve. Two is that the ones that why do they want to quit, right? So what is the problem? Because the second part of that is that I noticed that the media and different people have gotten attached to, there's a teacher shortage. There's not a teacher shortage. They're just choosing to leave the
Right.
classroom.
And I talk about that strongly. I agree with you so much on that. It's not a shortage, it's a retention issue.
Right. And so how do we get to the place where we can retain our good teachers? Because it does appear that the teachers that we're retaining may not be the ones that we would have chosen for our own journeys.
Right, right. Well, and I, to be real frank with you, your stats are about the teachers that want to leave. 2022, 567,000 teachers did leave compared to the year before that. So, and that was 2 years ago. So I can only imagine how much that's continuing to increase, because I was one of those teachers that year. And, I can speak to myself and the reasons that I left. In order for me to go back, there would have to be systematic change. And one of the reasons that I left was because of the shortage. I wasn't able to do the job I was hired to do. I was constantly subbing for other people who were in more essential positions in terms of having classes that needed to be, seen every day, versus my position where I was pooling students and working in small groups. But that alone, fixing that problem is still not enough to say, oh yes, I'd go back to that, because there were so many other issues, so many other things on teachers' plates. I just read recently that the new starting salary in Rock Hill, South Carolina for teachers is $52,000, which is amazing to start at $52,000. I left teaching 2 years ago and I was just making a little over 60 after 23 years in education. So that system right there is so broken, state to state and district to district. We've got to pay more attention to how we're universally, compensating our teachers. It needs to be more universal so that it's not so much of, oh, I don't want to live here, I want to go there, I want to live there. It's everywhere I go, I see different amounts and different pools, different benefits that people have in place for teachers, and then other districts where there's nothing to make teachers want to come there.
Yeah.
I'm coaching in a district now in the north that it's just they're struggling to find teachers because it's just a very rural area. And getting teachers to come and move into that area is very difficult, or even commute in.
Right. So, okay, this is my thing. Now, one day, not one day, many times you've heard me say the same thing. I believe that I have a plan. I personally have a plan. If I was given the opportunity to run Department of Education across the nation, I have a plan. I have a comprehensive plan to attack and adjust to all the things that are happening now. We're losing children because they're dropping out. We're losing them earlier and earlier. The percentage of being able to transition into college successfully is going down. There's the trade schools are missing in the equation. So there's so many things going on. So my suggestion, and I know you've heard it, and this is part of our conversation today, is take 11 million children out of the 50 million, and you will start to get phone calls that will begin to ask the question of what do we need to change in order for you to come back.
Right.
Now,
it's not the teachers leaving that matter. It's the kids leaving.
It's the kids that are leaving, because so taxpayer dollars, no matter what happens, will always come out and be provided to the government.
Right.
And how they choose to allocate it will be 100% not transparent behind their walls. But when you lose the children, you lose the ability to call for that money. So a school can't call for money for students who do not exist in their district,
Right.
who do not exist in their school.
Right.
So if you can't call for the millions of dollars you need to run that building, you will not have a building in a few years thereafter.
Right.
So understanding that when you start losing a good number of children, that does have a significant impact to the community itself, as well as the district, and primarily to the families, right?
Well, and that trickles into, if children are disappearing and less kids are in school, then less teachers will be allocated for each school, and there'll be less staffing. And, just right there, that trickle starts.
Right. So I decided today will be the day I was going to explain 11 million. If you take 20% away from anything, it will make a significant enough impact that someone will start to ask questions. I live in a world of nothing but data. So if the data supports, if you have a downturn of 20%, even in the stocks, everybody goes into a panic, right? So that's not different from any other system. So why not take out a percentage and say, you're not listening any other way. So let us show you what we're asking you to replicate or do. So my recommendation is that if you remove the 11 million, you still have to educate them. So you pull them into a system that is parallel to the public school system, that is not charter, but it is parent led. Allow the parents and the community to lead the education in a way that allows each child the ability to be seen, heard, acknowledged, and educated, right? Because what's going to happen there is that the community will be able to share what they need internally, but they also will be able to share what others will need externally. So what that means is that inside the community, the opportunity for you to say, we need electricians, we need bookkeepers, we need engineers, we need manufacturing. Okay. So let's help to identify who those students may be, and now start pouring some of that into the school that allows them to build on that trajectory so that that community can get what they're looking for. By doing that, now you're meeting the community needs and helping to improve what's around the school. So that means that more taxpayer dollars can actually go to that area. That means that you can have your streets fixed, your lights taken care of. You don't have to go far to get certain things. And then people are being able to make the type of salary that keeps families in place and intact, right? But externally, maybe people don't want to stay inside that community. Maybe they desire to be bigger or live elsewhere. And that's where the outside entry comes into place, right? So now you have people in North Carolina need linemen. People in Georgia may need lifeguards. You may have lots of different ways that your skills can be utilized outside your individual community. So we will feed and work towards that. But I do believe that because we do, okay, little Johnny, we're going to go ahead and place you over here with these people and go with them. They're going to teach you. And then we go hands off. And when the homework comes home, we can't help them because we're unaware of how to get that done.
Right, right.
So that's part of what I mean by that. I believe that there are various schools that are not necessarily listed as charter schools, but maybe listed more as private schools. But their point is that someone said they were unhappy about the current school system the way it was. So they developed a system that was going to benefit the children in a way that they seen a positive. It's like positive in, got positive out, and now they have positive human beings that are walking, doing nothing but working to improve their lives.
Right.
So I don't know how to get there though. I'm just gonna I'm one of those people who are gonna can be really honest about this stuff. I don't know how to get there. I know that I have a plan forward, but I can't execute that plan because I need teachers, I need parents, and I need coaches, and I need people who are willing to participate. And here's the thing, in order to make a change in any system, you have to have participants and contributors. That's why school is able to stay where it is, because it's getting funding. The funding doesn't go away.
Right.
They're getting funding, they're getting support, and people are readily are still dropping children off. But if they had an option, would they still drop them off there? I want to provide parents an option, because what we're being funneled into is not helpful to our children outside. And that's my challenge. That's where I worry. That's what I worry about.
Right. How do we keep it funded so that all children can benefit, and it doesn't become a class issue of kids that are, would qualify to come to a different program, wouldn't have to be based on anything other than, you want to come here, then you can come here.
Right. But the funding can actually come from the government. So there are ways. So I'm telling you, I understand how to do it. I just need the people to do it, and the parents who are willing, because you really just need to, I'm a firm believer that homeschooling, cyber, and charters were not meant to do what they're doing today. The only reason why they've been successful in continuing to do this forward is because nothing has changed in the public school that allowed them, that forced them to change.
Right. It's the only other option. It's not like they have other options. So that's I guess we'll try this instead.
Right.
And it shouldn't be that way. And Phil says, I think it starts with communities who are ready for a wonderful change. I think absolutely getting it. A lot of it comes back to that buy-in, getting buy-in, not just from the teachers, but also from the parents, the students, the stakeholders in the community of, hey, this is different. This is what it's going to look like. This is how we need support. This is why we need your support. But being very transparent and getting that community to surround and say, yeah, let's try this. That is one of the hardest hurdles, I think, in the world, is finding a group of like-minded growth mindset people willing to take on that kind of challenge. But
they're already doing it. That's where all of my struggle comes into play. You're already doing it. I'm just asking you to do it for a different organization. Right. Let's create our own and do that, because we can get the taxpayer dollars back into the school of our choosing. But first of all, you have to have a commitment. When you have a child, that's at least a 16-year commitment. I know everybody's
At
like,
least,
16
yeah.
years,
Yeah.
16 years, because these jokers try to leave at 15, y'all. But they be trying to go. But my thing is that that's a commitment. That's a 16-year commitment. You don't have that type of commitment with a marriage.
Right.
So when you have these children, we make these commitments. We just need to make a commitment that we want to put our children in a position to have a better life than the one that they lead today. It's not to say that you did not give them the best life that they could have or ever dream of. What we're saying is that if you stagnate, you die. That
Yeah.
doesn't work. We have to move forward, because standing still does not work for anyone. So I don't know how to go about doing that, but I would like that. And so Phil wants me to tell you a plan. You ready? Problematic students, no suspension. So if I'm going to take a look at education as a whole, I'm going to take a look at all parts. One, we have a safety issue. Two, we have an academic issue. Okay. Safety issue is not just arrival and dismissal, it's internal to the school as well.
Right.
We do have to take a look at bullying. We have to take a look at the reason why students do not want to attend school. And we have to take a look at who's in the building, right? So bullying it cannot be on print everywhere. No bully free zone, no
Right.
tolerance. When you see somebody bully another person and you do nothing.
Right.
I had to call the school.
It's so hypocritical, and those kids know it and don't buy into any help that is offered them to them.
Correct. And that's definitely a problem. So I would work to resolve that immediately. It would be a no tolerance. But here's the other thing. Bullies will bully as long as people keep quiet. Bullies only work in the dark. They don't work in the light. Because if they worked in the light, a lot of people wouldn't be in the positions that they are in, because they would have been relieved of that, right? Yeah. They only work in dark spaces. So that's the one thing. So you want to pull them out into the open, and I would give people the opportunity. I probably give all the little kids little bullhorns. Johnny, stop messing with me. So they can stop. So it forces them out of that space. But I would give the kids tools to be able to handle some of that.
Well, and you say that. When I was coaching in New Jersey this past spring, I had a really cool experience at a preschool where they were all on the playgrounds. And, you know how tattling goes, especially with 3 and 4-year-olds. If a kid bumps another kid, he hit me, even though it wasn't necessarily an intentional hit. So the teacher, instead of every time having to deal with each issue that came up, because God knows they were one after another, each time she would say, "How did that make you feel?" And usually the student, whoever it was, it made me feel sad, or I'm okay, or, just little things. And then she'd say, "Go tell the other person how you feel." And they'd go walking away. "You made me feel sad when you bumped me." And the other person, 9 times out of 10, the other child went, "I'm sorry." And then they were fine. Yeah. And it was completely dissolved. And something that could have blown up, and teaching them that kind of thing from a young age of, hey, this bothered me, and I'm going to tell you why. What a better way to teach our kids how to advocate.
Right. And then too, it teaches them to be able to use their voice in a way that's successful, right? Because right now we got a bunch of adults that don't know how to use their own voice.
Right.
They walking around
appropriately.
Right. There's some things I'll be like, do we just say that? Oh my God. Right. But then there's some people, they just don't know how to, their first thing is to punch or to hit or to harm. I'm like, wait, hold on. How do we run from 0 to here? Right. So, I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I advocate for, okay, so there we go. Problematic students, no suspension. People are like, well, how do you get rid of this problem? Oh, that's okay. They stay in school. Because here's the thing, bullies and these people, the disruptors and problematic students are having problems at home. So
Absolutely. Sending them home is probably the worst place to send them.
And a couple of them, depending on the areas, if you let them go home, they go and they get involved in a family that's not biologically linked and can potentially cause them harm in the long run. So
Absolutely.
sending them home is not the answer. However, you can't leave them in the class with the rest of the people.
Right. When
So-
they're acting a fool.
So my recommendation is not in-house suspension, anything like that. You are now on a different track, and your track will be following the same academic schedule as everyone else, but you will go under a military-like teaching. So that means male or female will teach you all of your academics inside the school, but inside your own hallway. That way, it prevents you from being able to engage and interact with any other general ed or special ed programs and participants, but you're able to stay inside and amongst the group of problematic students. And then the goal there is to use that very stringent, strict teaching and teach them academically. And when we find that we're not able to reach them in that way, then we will process them out into a different way, but never home and never into juvenile detention. Right. The goal is to get to the child, not leave the child to their own devices.
Right.
So I feel like that's one of the significant things, because some kids want to go home, be suspended to go and play with their friends or to do other things. And we don't want to gift them that. You want to give them the ability to say, no.
Right.
Your behavior has consequences, but the consequences aren't the ones you want, but they're the ones you need.
Right. Well, and I think in our current climate in our world, that's something that's needed more and more, that we're not paying attention to, and that more and more kids are starting to slip through cracks because we're just not equipped to catch them the way that we need to at schools. One of the things over the last few years in particular, with the change of funding in buildings, these public education buildings are being set up to fail. They can't succeed if they're not given what they are needed. And, my school alone, where I used to work, 2 years ago, there were a good 8 or 9 of us on the, support staff team to help support our kids, because the needs were so significant in our building. There are only 3 people remaining on that team now. And that's because of budget cuts. And there's no way 3 people can handle the caseload of what 9 people struggled with.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that it's like, people don't realize that's what's happening in schools. Kids aren't necessarily getting, so much worse. There's less and less support for dealing with anything.
Yep.
And as a result, more and more kids are acting up.
Yep. I agree.
We're just not able to catch it.
And you can see it on the street. That's why it's important that the community gets involved, because all those people who keep saying, I don't have any children. I don't have any children. I don't need to be involved. I don't have any children.
Right.
That's not my business. Here's the thing. When they kick over your trash can, is it your business? When they knock over your mailbox, is that your business? I just seen this one. When they put a bag of dog poop on your front stoop, is that your business?
Right.
So the thing about it is, a lot of things we say, okay, that's where we are, or that's not possible. But this is possible, because, and let me give you one better. So when they break into your car and steal your car and get caught, but then you turn around and have to employ them 3 years later,
right?
Because they walked in and you forgot that was the person who stole your car. So think about this stuff. Education impacts all of us. It's just at what point do we intersect with it?
Right.
With the outcomes of what's been happening inside those schools.
Well, and what you put in is what you're going to get out. And if we're not investing, when these kids are in these schools, we're going to invest in them later in prisons.
Yes. And that investment is throwing money down the toilet. I'd rather throw money in the toilet than to be paying our taxes, paying for people who either didn't do it or 100% did do it.
Right.
So we're just caught in these strange places. Here's my next one: pre-K and K. I'm giving them back their playtime. How dare y'all take away 2.5 hours? And what happened to half a
100%.
day kinder?
Right. Right. I watched 3 and 4-year-olds trying to make it through 6 hours, and they were stumbling around by the end of the day like zombies, and they took a nap, but they still just the afternoon is a complete waste in those classrooms because they can't handle it developmentally. But
No.
yet, we got to do the same thing for everybody the same way.
But yet here we are with the same foolishness and the same mess. And I just say to myself, this is quite oh, what the hell? Sorry. Quite messy. I just don't like how this is working.
I love it.
So what did Phil say? Every student needs a customized plan for behavioral issues, and they need to be matched with a great fit teacher who is able to connect and reach them and engage them in learning that they are excited about. Pay the teachers bonuses on transforming students. Boom.
And train the teachers. Absolutely. I love every bit of that. 100%. I think a huge component there is training the teachers too. A lot of, as a behavior specialist for over 6 years, a lot of the problems that I dealt with were adult instigated or the adults were the one that kept fueling the fire with the student. And I'd have to, teach the student how to defuse themselves and walk away and then process with me what was going on, just to get them away from the adult, because the adult typically was the one pushing the buttons and trying to keep it going.
Doesn't make sense, right? It just really doesn't.
It doesn't.
That just lets you know that there are a lot of people walking around pretending to be adults who are not.
Right.
Right.
And we haven't given them training, so we can't hold them accountable yet to say you're acting a fool. Even though we know that a lot of this is common sense and just being a good person, treat people the way you want to be treated. People don't do that. Nope. So we have to train them to do that and then hold them accountable when they don't do it. And that's something that's not happening, unfortunately.
And that's the other thing that I would do is I would make sure that the rules are listed.
Yeah.
And that they understand when they come because they have gotten in trouble in the classroom or in the hallways or wherever, that they come to me or they come to the leadership and they say, and if leadership is trained correctly, they say, what rule did you break?
Right.
Because once they understand what rule they broke, they understand there are consequences on the other side of that. But that's an acknowledgement of what they have done. I punched Johnny and I wasn't supposed to. He was just making me so frustrated that I just punched him. But what rule is that? Number one, keep your hands to yourself, right? So being able to identify some of those will help them identify where the rules are. And now when they get the consequences, they understand that they broke the rules, the consequences are, and you can't get out of it because we got proof that you did it, right? So once you start doing that, a lot of things start to get clear, very, very clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would get rid of standardized testing. Standardized testing I would get rid of because the teachers are graded against the standardized testing because the law does not allow the standardized testing to keep students in the place where they're failing.
Right.
So based off of what has been provided, is that correct? Am I correct in understanding that?
I mean, that's my understanding in terms of, I know that when I was a teacher, every year we gave standardized tests. Those scores came into us, and those kids were in another grade before we could do anything with the scores. So it didn't help us as educators knowing what to do with that group of students to make it better. There was no formative assessment to it. It was all summative.
So you get an assessment. So the student gets an assessment. They complete the assessment. You get the results, and there is no plan of action to correct because the child has to move forward.
The
Right?
next year, they're expected to use those scores and do accordingly, grouping students. And hopefully that's what's happening. But you're throwing them with brand new teachers that don't know them at all. And they're starting all over versus, hey, if we looped these teachers up with these students, and this is just my personal opinion, but the more we could loop students and keep them with teachers through the curriculum, and students and teachers built that relationship and rapport, the better I think we would see kids do, because the better the relationships are, the better the learning is going to be. And that's just, standardized testing or not, they're going to do better and want to do better if they know that they're being held accountable. And right now it has no meaning to them. So, kids are, and we're told, kids are told at the beginning of testing, oh, this, you have to take this test and it's very important and you need to try your hardest, but don't worry, it's not going to affect you moving to the next grade. Well, right there, how do we know if we're getting a real true validation of that child's ability? We've just told them that it doesn't really matter.
You actually just confirmed everything they're already thinking, which is,
right.
I'm here for no reason. I'm here because adults don't know what to do with us.
This is just a waste of 4 hours of my day for 6 days, because God knows we've got to test every subject. And then what we do, at least in some states, and I'm not going to speak for all states because I don't know them all, but in states I've worked in, if kids perform below a certain level, we get those scores back, and we have literally like a 5-day window to remediate those students and retest them again. So we have to put them through that hell again, knowing 5 days later, knowing that they're most likely not going to pass it again. So we've got to put them through it just in case, because, that 1 or 2 kids that might pass it, we can then justify we've remediated them. Everyone else then has to go through the failing of it twice and deal with that emotional disaster, which I don't know if you've ever been in a classroom with 3rd graders when you have to tell them they didn't pass a test. It's not fun. And doing it one-on-one with kids is the best way to handle it. That way they're not, finding out. But the minute they see their peers and their peers see them crying, they know, oh, that means that one, my friend didn't pass, or that means the so-and-so did, or whatever it might be. And they keep track of all of that stuff.
See, I just think that it's like,
you got me.
I have test anxiety. So I constantly have this as a problem, and no one ever came to me and said, let me help you figure this out until I got into my college years. Right.
Me either. Yeah.
So it's just nutty to do that. I would still have testing, but the way that I would measure, what I would be measuring for is problem solving, decision making, right? And
right.
Then I would charge the teachers accountable for the techniques. That's what you should be charged with. You, as a teacher, my expectation of teachers is to set the expectation and provide the techniques that are best suited for any problem that I have to solve in my life. That's going to be math, science, world history, whatever the subject's going to be. So I would charge a teacher with techniques, not with testing. And I would not remove testing, but would change the testing.
The way that it's done. Absolutely.
That doesn't make sense. You're doing these pop quizzes and everything, but when you take that and put it in a standardized testing, they don't meet.
No.
They don't match, which means that you are disconnected from the standardized state testing to what is the curriculum that's in the classroom. And because they don't meet, the students are disconnected in education. So changing that would be something I would definitely look to do.
Well, and because of where money goes, what ends up happening is that teachers teach to the test, because the test is what's the most important, and the test is where funding comes from. And if we don't pass the test, then we have to retake the test, and we have to be a blue ribbon school. And in order to be a blue ribbon school, you have to have high test scores, and all of that. It goes back to following the money of,
But I just learned that failing schools get more money.
They do but at the same time, I don't know that they're taught how to use that money any differently.
That's because they don't have financial literacy. If you don't
Right.
have financial literacy K through 12, how are you expecting people who did not have financial literacy as a foundation to all of a sudden know
To come out
financial
and know
literacy
how.
and go ahead and put that mess into play when it comes to business and any type of position that you hold?
Right.
It's unrealistic to believe that that is going to happen, because somewhere through osmosis that happened, right?
Right.
Not going to
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
The other thing is 1 through 8, grade 1 through 8, I would be identifying. 1 through 5, I would identify their strengths, and I would start working on the weaknesses, the places where they fall short the most, and then I would get them all on the same plane. So between grade levels 1 through 5 is where you identify children who cannot read. I will identify them quickly and then put them in a place where they will have a track that will help them get where they need to go, whether they're dyslexic or need a special ed program that will assist them. But one way or another, they will not get lost in the sauce. So all these people out here saying how they can't do these things, it's just simple as just moving that dial by 1 or 2 points and then just shifting just slightly. You're asking for a bunch of people in, a bunch of students in, but you're not processing them in. You're not sorting them in a way that's going to be beneficial to home and community. You're sorting them in a way that is beneficial to the systems that we don't see.
Right. Right. And you're sorting them in a way that teachers have learned to teach them, which is not necessarily the correct way that we should have been taught. As a former educator, I will stand by myself saying I've worked in, both special education and general education positions. I did not receive training for either job to the extent of what I needed. And now if you asked me, okay, what did you not get? I didn't get any training on classroom management. I didn't get any training on how to build rapport, relationships with my students. I just lucked out that I'm good at that. If I hadn't been, that's where teachers fall short. If they don't know how to build a relationship and rapport with their student, then it's hard to, as Rita Pearson says, kids don't learn from people they don't like. Bottom line.
That is
you gotta, as a teacher, you gotta be an actor or an actress. You gotta convince them that you love them so much, and you've got to sell everything you're teaching to them like it's the best thing in the world. If you can do that and act, guess what? You can teach really well.
That is so. I'm not very good
at it. Don't put me on stage and tell me to act, though. Put me in front of a group of kids and I can do it.
I can't do either. I'm not going to act for you. Little Johnny, I may not like you, but I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to be respectful of you, and I'm going to love you through this, right? I'm going to love you through my own dislike of you. That's what we need to start doing, because we're the adults. Absolutely. I don't like your personality. It cuts me every time I talk to you. But I'm going to love you through this, and I'm not going to give you less than you deserve because I can't figure out how to connect with you.
Yes.
That's not that child's fault, and it's not your fault, but it is the circumstances that you find yourselves in, and what you do with it is how you will be measured.
Yes, absolutely. I used to say to my students all the time, I love you, but I don't like the way you're acting right now. Instead of, I don't like you, I don't like the way you're acting, changes all of a sudden. It's like, oh, what am I doing? And they reevaluate so much more, and there's so much more self-awareness that they can then hopefully develop.
Yes.
The more we model that, the more they can develop. Because I know I had wonderful teachers over the years, but no one that ever said, I'm going to teach you how to be self-aware. I'm going to teach you how to be socially aware. Those were things that just didn't come up. So.
Okay. All right, Phil. Phil wants to play tug of war.
I love it.
So I have a difference of opinion on working with all students on their weaknesses. Although there may be a minimum standard or threshold of knowledge, everyone may need to understand. This is true.
Yes.
So I don't think we have a difference of opinion, Phil. I think we have a difference of approach. And at the end of the day, I think that my approach is one, but there's 359 other ways to do the same, to get the same actions, to get the same outcome. So I always recommend that people, let's talk about it. And Phil says, if Phil comes in and he says, Tabitha, I'm going to be part of your school. And I would like, awesome. I would like, Phil, this is your hallway. Phil's going to go down that hallway and he's going to use his approach to reach his students, and he is going to have great success because he vetted the students in that hallway, and he understands their strengths, their weaknesses, and he understands their learning abilities, and he's willing to learn their way, help them learn their way instead of forcing them to learn ours. And I think that that's significant.
Well, and the more we have to teach them that, that's another thing. Teachers aren't taught how to help their students learn how to learn. How is your learning? What is your learning style? How do you know that? What makes you learn that way? And what can you do about it to help yourself learn better? Again, didn't learn that till I was a postgraduate student. And once I learned it, it changed my life as a learner. Not only did I learn that I could study, but I learned how to study so that it was something that I was actually able to retain and get it.
Phil is funny. Yes, Phil, you get a hallway.
A whole hallway. I love it.
A whole hallway. So you're gonna have tons of kids down this hallway. So I agree. I agree with that. I think that, yes, I agree. No need to continue. So 9 to 10, I would make sure they have decision-making exercises. So everything that they do, every day that they do it, so they would be met with a fork in their day, and they have to make decisions based off of that. And that's going to help them to make sound decisions when it comes to, because when it falls back on them, they will understand that's not a consequence they want. Because I do believe if children understood that shooting resulted in their lives being over or dead, I'm not too sure that they will still continue to do the same things unless they just wanted the pain to stop.
Right.
I
think some of them are so desensitized to that they just can't wrap their head around what that means.
Yes. And it's causing, and that disconnect again, if you have the testing and you have and they don't meet, that's what's happening. We can see it all in the kids. They're not as connected, and they're not as nurturing or responsive to things that we think that that we would think that they would automatically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, my last group is 11 to 12. They would no longer be in a classroom environment unless they are not capable of being in a university environment. But 11th and 12th graders, I would immediately put them in a college or university style teaching environment, which allows for the teachers to kind of double up on a classroom that might be 30 or 60 kids in it.
Right.
So if you put 60 kids in an auditorium-like environment, preparing them for university and teaching them in a way that gets them to understand what that looks like, I do believe that they will be better suited and ready for college life. Now, university is different from colleges that are different from trade schools. So based on the trajectory of each student, the groups, they will be sent into the direction of their choosing, but for their learning type, specifically to make sure that they are ready to go into college. So I will circle back before we move on to the one other thing I want to make sure we take care of today is that 11 million children come out of public school to be taught parent-led teaching, even if that means that the teachers are not parents, but they're other teachers. But just allow the parents to say, this is what I want, this is what I'm asking for, this is what I would like to see for my child, and are we able to do that? But then being able to put pre-K through 12th grade, a whole entire system together that will prepare them from beginning to end to enter into the world as participating human beings instead of just showing up, are we here, we'll eventually be here type of a thing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I am with that. I don't want anybody to take my comments that they previously heard, because no one's really asked the question as to why it's 11 million and what am I going to do with those 11 million. All I'm saying is that privately teach them at home, and enough of us have to leave the school system in order for them to say, we have messed up so badly that we really do need to evaluate what we're doing. Because naturally, there are less and less children going to school every year. Because if you look at the number of children who are being born, the numbers are steadily going down because
Right.
there is no added benefit in having 13 children. The
Yep.
benefit for a lot of the newer families is literally the 2.5.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that, the big thing is having options.
Yep.
The more option we can have, the more we can serve kids' needs individually. As an advocate, something that it is near and dear to my heart is that individualization that kids need.
Yep.
That doesn't mean every kid needs something different for everything all day, every day. But what you do for one kid might be good for all kids.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
keeping that in mind.
This is true. So that's how I see the 11 million. That is what I'm talking about. But let's talk about the safety aspect. I'm gonna go ahead now that I have a little bit more time and understand the focus in which I have to do. I'm looking for a police officer that I can sit down and talk to about the school shootings. I think that's an important thing because child safety is encompassed in that now, and we really need to pay attention to that. But let's have a little bit more of a discussion around the child safety aspect. Why do we find that we're not getting the traction or the movement or the change that we want to see based off of the number of children who have died, or the number of children who've gotten on the wrong bus, or the number of children who found themselves walking when they should be on a bus? All of these things. So let's look at it. If we take, it's 50 million children every school year, 32 million for K through 8. But if you take a school system and you say there are about 50,000 students and only 25% of them ride, if you ride 25% of the population 180 days, you will have completed 2.25 million rides, meaning you have had 2.2 million rides without incident.
Right.
Wrong.
Right.
Wrong. It's not real. This is where everybody gets lost. So it does. You have completed 180. You have completed 2.25 rides. Yes, true. Without incident, not true. What's happening is, if you think about it, so again, the land of data. When you look at the numbers and you do the math, you actually learn that there is less than 0.01% that potentially get lost every day. If you look at that up against the 50,000 students, it's not enough to move the needle. So if you look at it, if a whole entire classroom of students died and there is change that is happening specifically there, but how many other children died prior to that, and they made short and small changes, but not enough to blanket everyone.
Right.
Because here's the thing. This is the way I looked at it. As a parent of 2 children, right? When I seen the shootings or the problems that they were having, I made changes on my side. But I also asked what changes are being made on their side, and was met with, we don't need to make a change.
Right. Right.
Why don't they need to make a change? They don't need to make a change because the percentage is not enough to dictate a change. Because so when they say girl math, in which that by itself is holy crap, okay?
Right.
They are using very bad math to say they don't need to change.
Right.
But when I went to, like I said, I'm bringing my new website. I'm in the process of putting all this together. And so as I pull up these different incidents, I have to say, at multiple pages of so many different incidents, and as far back as 12 years and as close as 4 months ago. So for all those people who say the numbers don't make it work, that if one child is too many, but 2,300 a day, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
I don't care which way, I don't care what math problem we do. I don't care who we speak to. 23,2300 is too many children every single year to go missing in this country. And no one, and everyone sits there, or many people sit there and say, yeah, we don't need to make a change. We're okay.
Right.
We have it all under control. But this happened to me, and then the guy hit the news. He hit the news for leaving a child, a special ed kid. Then he hit the news again for leaving a different child. So I don't know how else to say it. Part of my frustration was I thought I was in the wrong place. Maybe I wasn't the right person. Maybe I'm talking to the wrong people. None of that is true. I am the right person. I'm the best person you're ever going to find for advocacy.
Yeah.
Okay. There's not a brick wall that I have found that I cannot break through at some given point in time. It may take me a little bit of time, but I'll make a lot of noise getting there. Okay. I built a system 10 years ago, but that system is now needing an upgrade. Everything that I put into it now is what they're currently doing now. Now it doesn't need an upgrade. It's fine where it is because it's still functioning and it still has additions to be added to it. But what's about to happen is about to give parents a little bit more extra support when it comes to their children. And that means that because the schools potentially did not want to participate or be a partner in a lot of this, potentially will take the responsibility away from them and will provide it to the parents. Well, then now they will be answering to individual people instead of answering to a group. And that would have been different for them. But my goal is to give as much support as I possibly can to the parents, because I've worked so diligently to get close to principals and superintendents and different things like that, and even have friends, and I use that word, friends, who are supers who have not provided support and understanding. So that makes me wonder,
right,
do we really want the problem? And is our children financially benefiting somebody else that we are unaware of?
You've raised a lot of really, really good questions and good points for sure. I would be very interested in having that follow-up conversation with police officer involved.
You want to come on that show with the
sure,
police officer?
I would love to. I just think it would be fascinating to hear from that standpoint.
And the thing about the police officer, because I did have one here, and he was very apprehensive to have the conversations that we need to have.
Right.
We can't sugarcoat because they're not willing to have that conversation, because the data is the data. That is the data. And the demographics show you that there is a difference between the groups, and it would be great to understand why and what needs to change. And so they have to be open and willing to have that conversation and give us tactical ways to work through any of the challenges that we see in front of us. But I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation today, because I felt like it was important. One is, my whole entire thing is about child safety. I spend all day, every day, thinking and concerned about the safety of children. And I hope at some point in time that I would get more support when it came to that, but it's not working in the way that I expected to. But that's okay, because that's on me, and I will make that change, and I will look for I'll look for a better way to do that. But today was the day I needed to be able to explain the 11 million and the child safety, because I do not want anyone to take my words and do something with them thinking that, oh, that's the way. That's not it. Oh, wait, what does Phil say? FYI, the police has a national night out on Tuesday. Check out the website. They have a map where you can click on the state. It reflects how many cities have community events online calendar in 9. Oh,
that's cool.
Thank you, Phil. I do appreciate you. This has been a good conversation. What are you thinking?
Absolutely. And it's just getting started. I think part of the reality is getting everybody to know, and getting people in the know is a big piece of what's going on with both the work that you and I do. You know, a lot of people that could be a part of making the change just don't know it needs to change. Yeah. So we need to.
They're afraid.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I can't blame them. Having been in a former position with school systems, I worked for 5 different districts. All of the districts, if I had come on a show like this and spoken on behalf of them, I could have been let go immediately. Yeah. We were trained that if we were approached by media, we had a candid response. We were expected to give, basically saying, I'm not allowed to talk to the media. You can talk to my supervisors. And that, to me, it just sets a bad tone right from the get-go.
Yes.
Because then people can't be open and honest and share.
Well, I see. Well, I'm glad that we're doing this. I'll make sure that you are in the loop for next time so that we can talk to that police officer.
That sounds great.
I thank you very much for your time. And as always, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate the support and look forward to you visiting us again next week. Same time, same place. Until then, words are power. Please remember to use them wisely. If you have an interest but like to be on our live show, please let us know and send us a direct message. Okay. All right, Kristen, we did